just to say, obviously talking about writing, Paul, do you want to briefly talk about what you're currently writing? It's more of a novel you're writing now, is that right?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to, well, my target is to have it up by next year. I've written more than half of it. I don't exactly know where it's going to go, but it's basically, I had a conversation, I was at a funeral, and a friend of mine, we were there about midnight, and it was, or a bit worse for wear by then, very popular guy from Barry had died, and it was a huge funeral. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and not a great friend then, but I've become closer to him since then, was bemoaning the fact his wife had left him, and his wife had gone off with a woman, and his children, he wasn't having a great relationship with his children, and he's reading the bemoaning, and he was saying, you know, he said, I should have got someone to follow her, so I could have found this out ages ago. And he's talking about private. I said, do you know how much they charge? And I said, no idea. Anyway, I woke up the following morning thinking about this. I said, how would you become a private eye? So I started looking online. You could do it in an afternoon. You don't have to do much. You get some cards made, advertise yourself. You know, you don't even need an office these days. You can do it all on the run.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh yeah. So this is that was the seed of the story. I was disaffect this person. His name is Elmore Slant. And there's a background to that, because my ex-wife used to do comedy waitressing, and so people would employ her to go to a wedding, and she'd make up these stupid, like silly canapes. She'd dress all a bit clumsily, you know, like someone off Dinner Ladies, you know, and the only people that knew she wasn't one of the waiting staff would be the people who'd employed her. Anyway, she got me to go with it once. We went up to Chelmsford, and so we were the comedy waitresses, and she introduced me as Elmore Slant. That was her name. Yeah. Just a stupid name, and she was Virginia 12 Trees was her name. And we did this thing. It was an absolute riot. I loved it. It was so funny. So anyway, I thought, if I write the book, I'm going to call this Detective Elmore Slant. That's why I got that name. Okay. It's a bit of a fun name you can play around with. Yeah. So it's this teacher, disaffected with teaching. He's stepped on too many toes, and he's just said, hands his nut, and he goes. And because Karen and I go to Bristol a lot, and we stay around Bristol docks, I got a nice sense of, I could have done it in Barry O'Cardiff, but I just thought, no, I can set it there. I can imagine the places. So it's this character. He's got he set up this business with help of a friend, and it's going to have two parallel stories. One is with a girl that he bumps into, he used to teach, and she's got a problem with her son in this new school, and it's going to be to do with the county lines sort of the drug thing. And the other one's going to be about a blackmail story where this couple there's a couple that it's a blackmail ring that they're doing. So the two stories will entwine. I haven't sort of got my head around all of that yet. I got a rough idea. But in the meantime, there's a magazine called Writing Magazine, and they've got a competition. They run a competition every month. So I've come away from the book a moment, because it just happens the subject matter for this month's competition is school.
Okay.
It's called School. So I'm gonna. It's only 1,500 words, 1,700 words, I think. So at the moment, what I'm doing is entering that competition, and then I'll go back to this book. Okay.
Well, you're doing plenty. So you maybe think about Terry Venables then, you know, with when you said about, you know, that kind of the detective thing. Remember the stuff?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I love a football. But just a couple of things to talk about. Just the last couple of things. Firstly, there's this band, right, who I came across back in, when did I come across them? In the 90s, I think it must have been maybe late 90s. The guy who ran a radio station I was working at was a big fan. Used to play them a fair bit on the radio station, but they're not really that kind of huge, but they've been going a long time. And I know you love them. So tell us a little bit about your fascination with Turin Brakes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, that's a bit of a standing joke. I loved it when the Optimist came out. And I can remember my wife, back in 2000, she said, I've heard a great record on the radio. And she brought them back to my attention again. And that was it. And then went to see him a couple of times, but I could never go and travel because I was working. But when I retired, they were on tour. They were touring. They were about to tour Lost Property, which was the album before last. Yeah, I've been going to see him when I could. I mean, Karen and I went up to Brighton to see them when We Were Here was out, and but when Lost Property came out, I was not working, so I went to see them. Well, I went all over this. Went up to Cambridge to see them. I do a bit of Airbnb, and a guy who stayed here on Airbnb lives in Cambridge, so we kept in touch. So he said, "Yeah, sure, you can come up with me." I got the train up, so I went there to see them. Went to Brighton to see them, and went to Turin to see them as well. Karen got us tickets to go to Turin.
How great is that?
So over time, we sort of, well, we don't know them as close friends,
but they know you.
Yeah, we have a chat with Simon, the sound engineer. We'll go backstage and have a drink with them. Not recently because of COVID, because you got to be sensitive about those things. But they were the last band I saw before lockdown. First lockdown, went to see them in Falmouth. They were doing it was their acoustic tour, and you could tell things were a bit iffy then. The hall wasn't crowded. People hadn't turned up. People were cute, even though they weren't told the distance. You could see everyone keeping their distance. And that was I think that was Friday. That was the 13th of March, and the following weekend, Boris Johnson brought us into lockdown. Yeah. So we've been to see them all over the shop. We've been to Amsterdam to see them, and we will carry on doing it. And they, apart from anything else, I love their music. They're a great bunch of guys. Yeah. Fabulous bunch of guys. In fact, and this is, I don't know if I'll manage this, but when I was talking to Ollie Knights, this is the last time I said, listen, I'm writing this book. And I said, it's sort of going to be a bit of, it's not about you, I said, but I'm going to, the chapter titles are going to be named after Turin Brakes songs. I said, I haven't got a clue why I'm thinking of that. Wow. But do I need your permission? He said, no, you don't. So that's what I've started doing. So the first chapter in this book is called The Door, which is one of my favorite Turin Brakes songs. Brilliant. And then another chapter is Outbursts. So, I mean, you can call a chapter of the book anything you like. You can always hang it on something. Yeah. But that would just be a way of me sort of signifying in some, well, I said secret way. It's not a secret anymore because I just told you.
Yeah, but people don't need to know, do they? I mean, you need to know, but people don't really need to know. Yeah. You still have that love of music, which has come across throughout this entire conversation. You know, you started off back in the kind of the 60s and 70s with soul, and you've name checked so many different bands, and current stuff and everything else. So you're not one of those people who are stuck in the past, which I always think is really healthy. And above and beyond that, it transcends it, is your love of music, which really comes across. Yeah, good. Final question for you, and I'm thinking a little bit to a comment you made earlier on when you said about how when you were a kid, you wanted to be a journalist, and then you ended up being a teacher. So predominantly based on that, but do you have any regrets in your career?
No. I like to think I did I can't say that I influenced anybody in the same way as, well, a lot of kids keep in touch and they all say, well, if it wasn't for you this, or if it wasn't for you that. Whether I influenced any way the way Mr. Jacobs influenced me, I couldn't even tell you, could I? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I think in the main, I think I had a positive influence. And I like to think I was good at my job. I was always very professional. I pulled a few stunts along the way, like you have to survive. But I think I don't think I could have enjoyed it as much as I did if I wasn't doing something if I wasn't doing something positive. I ran foul of my seniors on more than one occasion, and like the phrase I like, which funny enough, I was watching a film last night. I was watching and they use this phrase in the book. What's the film? Django Unchained. As you know, the film with Jamie Foxx,
yeah,
Quentin Tarantino film,
yeah,
and they use that phrase in the book in that film when they say you can't ring the bell. So I had one or two run-ins, and sometimes you say things, and you can say sorry as much as you like afterwards if you want to, but you can't change what you've said. So I know I did get into those situations because I can be quite hot-headed at times, but I don't regret those things because they needed to be said at the time. Perhaps someone else would have said them in a more diplomatic way, but I enjoyed my time there. So no, I don't regret teaching. I think I was good at it, and I enjoyed it. You know, I probably even enjoyed the bits when I wasn't very good. So I don't know. Yeah.
All right, that's a good way to end the interview. You know, count and ring the bell, which is a great way to sum up your career. So Paul, anyway, thanks very much. Really appreciate it, and it was great talking to you.